Okay. I'm gonna open the Planning Commission regular meeting for Tuesday, February 11th at 2020 at 6:02 p.m. Call to order.
Commissioner Nathan Smith,
Present.
Commissioner Patrick Stevens,
Present.
Commissioner Anthony Salinas,
Present.
Vice Chair Paul Martin,
Present.
and Chairman Robert Tinker.
Present. I'd like all stand for our Pledge of Allegiance. And Nathan, would you give us the pledge, please?
Make sure my boy stands up first. Come on. All right. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Before we get into approval of adjustments into the agenda, I'd like to welcome all of you here. We're glad to see people here from our community here, and we thank you for being here. I'd like to go to any approval or adjustments to the agenda.
No adjustments.
Okay, then any conflict of interest disclosures?
Yes, my company has done work with the applicant on item 4, so I will be recusing myself from that item.
Okay. Okay, now we're going to talk about the public comment period. These are items that are not on the agenda. Any one person may address the committee on any matter not on this agenda. If you wish to speak, please fill out a public comment form provided at the back table and give it to the committee chair or secretary. There are 3-minute limits on public comments. There will be no sharing or passing of time to one another. State law prohibits the committee from discussing or taking actions by your comments.
I don't have any requests, but I was waiting to see if she.
I'm
Ma'am,
waiting.
did you want to speak during this portion? Yes. During for an item not on the agenda?
I'm not sure, I just saw
We have a flyer, a legal advertisement of V 2020.
For item number 4.
Okay, so you're for item 4.
Oh, 5, sorry, 5.
Okay, so no speakers for this portion.
Okay, so now I'm going to move on to actions, approval of minutes for January 14th. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion. I need a second for recommend approval of the minutes for January 14th, 2020.
Second.
I have a motion and a second.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Calindras,
Yes.
Vice Chair St. Martin,
Yes.
Chairman Tinker.
Yes. Okay, we're going to move on to the reorganization of the Planning Commission. And the first thing we'll deal with is the chair, and the chair is open for nominations for the chair.
Mr. Chairman, I nominate you for another year.
Thank you. Anybody else want to jump in that pot?
Fine with that.
Okay, so we have a nomination. I guess, do we need a second?
Yes.
Okay, we have a nomination for me to be chairman for the next year. Do we have a second on nomination?
I second that.
Okay, we have a first and a second.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Calindras,
Yes.
Vice Chair St. Martin,
Yes.
Chairman Tinker.
Yes. I can do that, both of myself. Okay, the next action is for the vice chair. Do I have nominations for the vice chair?
I nominate Commissioner Stevens for the vice chair position.
Good with that?
All right. I'll second that.
Okay, I have a first, or a nomination and a second for Commissioner Stevens to be the vice chair.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Calindras,
Yes.
Vice Chair St. Martin?
Yes.
Chairman Tinker?
Yes.
I'm gonna come stop here.
We gotta switch seats, I think.
You want to swap seats? You want me to move?
We don't have. It's up to you.
You know what? Why don't you stay down there, because I like Nathan here because he's always vacant.
Got more room?
I don't mind.
Gives you elbow
I
room.
think you just changed the name.
Who'd you switch?
No, we stayed the same, right?
Oh.
No.
She just switched your name
Yeah, so
tags.
Change name tags.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Okay, item number 3, consider PLAN 2020-0403 for an amendment to the Beaumont Center sign program located at 1659 and 1661 East 6th Street. And I'll turn it to staff.
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. Staff received an application for an amendment to the approved sign program that was submitted on January 17, 2020. The subject site is an existing shopping center. It was developed in the late 70s. It accommodates multiple tenants, and it has multiple parcels with different ownership entities. The original sign program was approved by the Planning Commission on August 13th, 2013, and it established sign criteria on the western portion of the center, which includes the anchor Stater Brothers. The current sign program is more restrictive than the Beaumont Municipal Code and limits channel letters to 18 inches. Logos are allowed to go up to 23 inches. The Beaumont Municipal Code allows 36-inch tall letters. The existing wall signage at the site is 3 feet in height. As you may have seen, Stater Brothers is currently rebranding and updating all of their stores and is proposing wall signage with a maximum height of 8 feet for that identification signs. The S in the Stater Brothers is 8 feet, and the remaining channel letters run between 4 feet 4 inches and 13 inches. The Stater Brothers location on Oak Valley Parkway and Beaumont Avenue has already been approved for this signage based on the sign program that they have, so that signage is installed there, and you can see how it fits in with the facade. The applicant is also requesting a change of the total sign area allowed in the sign program. Currently limits signage to 100 square feet. They are proposing 1 square foot per each lineal foot on the front elevation and 1.5 square feet per lineal foot on the freeway facing elevation. The existing signage has a total sign area of 103.5 square feet on the south elevation and 132.75 square feet on the east elevation. Under their current sign permit application that they have submitted, they are proposing 173.64 square feet on the south elevation and 217 square feet for the west elevation. They are also asking for additional language to allow the applicant to submit minor amendments and modifications of less than 10% to be approved by the Community Development Director and also subject to approval by the landlord. So at this time, staff would like to recommend that the Planning Commission approve PLAN 2020-0403, amending the Beaumont Center sign program as presented. The applicant is here, and I am also available to answer any questions you may have.
Vice Chairman Martin?
No questions.
No questions at this time.
So the sign program is limited to Stater Brothers and this particular application, this plan?
So the sign program does show the Stater Brothers elevations within it. If they wanted to amend that, they could come in and submit, or we could add language that it is, based on the logo, that the logo it can be 8 feet in height, and then maybe have a lower height limit on the rest of the channel letters.
I was just thinking if it's down the road,
Right.
you know, that if we're approving this specific one, that's good. We still have the opportunity to review if something different were to come in, so.
Yeah, every sign requires an application regardless for staff review. So
Okay.
this is just particular to Stater Brothers. Anybody else that would come in to make any change would still have to come through review. We'd assess it against the sign program and make sure what they're proposing is appropriate in the size and scale of whatever frontage they're on, and then go from there.
Okay.
So if we approve this, are we setting a precedent to where in the future, just staff can approve it?
No, so this would not allow staff to just make approvals. The language that they're requesting in there is consistent with what we have in the code already for like a minor variance, which is less than 10% of a deviation from any established standard. So, you know, a setback or a sign height or maybe a fence height in certain zones. The code has provisions already for allowing staff to make an approval based on that. And again, it's a case-by-case basis, so this doesn't necessarily mean that we would automatically grant, you know, their request, but we would be able to look at it, and then if it was appropriate, we could say, okay, it's within that 10% variance, the 10% minor variance that the code already allows for a lot of other things, and we could do that. If not, it'd be back here before you guys at Planning Commission for your determination.
So they had a smaller deli sign or pharmacy sign, that's the intent on being able to allow those.
Exactly, yeah.
Vice Chairman, or Vice Chairman, I'm getting mixed up here.
Right. No, just kind of on those comments, it doesn't open the door for everything. It's still a case-by-case basis, and that was kind of what was already answered, so
Yes.
thank you.
Mr. St. Barton? No. Yes, sir? Nope. Okay, there's no other questions, staff have heard the report, so I'm looking for a motion to consider Plan 2020-0403 for an amendment to the Beaumont Center sign program located at 1659 and 1661 East 6th Street.
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion and a second to approve Plan 2020-0403.
Commissioner St. Martin?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Calindras?
Yes.
Vice Chair Stevens?
Yes.
Chairman Tinker?
Yes.
I will step out for a moment.
Yeah, you might want to get your own little cubicle out here. Okay, item number 4. Just to explain to you, the reason that Commissioner Smith is stepping out is he has a conflict because his employer is involved with something with this project. And that's why he's stepping down at this point, so that he will not be interfering with the vote, and there'll be no prejudice to there. So that's why he's leaving the dais at this point. Okay, we're going to conduct a public hearing and consider a 1-year extension of time for tentative tract map 36583 to subsidize 192.61 acres into 497 residential lots with a minimum size of 4,000 square feet located north of Brookside Avenue, south of Cherry Valley Boulevard, west of Hannon Road, and east of Interstate 10. And do we have any folks to speak on this?
No, sir.
Okay, I'm going to turn it to staff.
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. Staff received a letter request to extend this proposed subdivision map for a period of 1 year. We received that request on January 17th, 2020. As part of the process, we did provide a public notice that was placed in the press enterprise and notified property owners within 300 feet of the subject property, and that was done on January 31st to let them know that the meeting was occurring tonight. Planning staff has not received any letters or comments from the public on this project. Just to give you a little background, the tentative map was approved by City Council on November 18, 2014, with a condition for an initial 2-year life. The subject property was not located within the city limits when the map was approved, and per the Subdivision Map Act, the approval shall not be effective until annexation of the property has been completed. The subject property was annexed to the city effective February 15, 2018. Therefore, the current expiration date on the proposed map is February 15th, 2020. If it is extended, the tentative map will have an additional 3 years in which they can request extensions under the Subdivision Map Act. The property is currently surrounded by vacant land to the north, south, and west, with large lot residential to the east. The property is also bordered by the county riverside on the north, east, and west. To the south is community commercial and residential single-family zone properties. The proposed extension is not proposing any modifications to the approved tentative map that does provide a minimum lot size of 7,000 square feet with average lots between 8,600 square feet to 11,600 square feet throughout 4 planning areas within the Sunny Cal specific plan. An EIR was also certified for the project in 2007, and it had a later addendum that was certified in 2014. The proposed extension will not result in any increase of density or intensity that was not previously analyzed under the EIR. The Beaumont Municipal Code does allow the Planning Commission to act as an advisory agency, and that the Planning Commission can forward to the City Council approval or denial of this application. So at this time, staff would like to recommend that the Planning Commission forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council to approve a 1-year extension of time for tentative tract map 36583. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. The applicant is here as well.
Okay, before I open a public hearing, does staff have any questions?
No.
Mr. St. Martin?
At this time, no, but
So,
it's going to come back to us, right?
uh,
This will come back to us when they're ready to proceed.
Yes, so if there's any development activity on this property, it would have to still go through the typical approval process. This just has to do with extending the tentative tract map, so that gives the property owner time to market it or decide what he's going to do with it or build or.
Because we approved
whatever.
this many years ago, and there were stipulations along the Cherry Valley, the Cherry Boulevard, Cherry Valley Boulevard.
And that included larger lots,
Yes.
so that's still included. They're not changing anything that was approved
Okay.
previously, so they do have the larger lots that are on Cherry Valley Boulevard.
my question was, they're just wanting 1-year extension just because of the way that the date lands on, because they said that it landed on, I guess, a day, I think it was a holiday or something, I think I read.
And actually, we're not recommending that that date be changed. We're just extending it by 1 year from the date that the property was annexed, because the Subdivision Map Act only gives you 24 months from when it was approved or conditionally approved. So it doesn't account for weekends or holidays, so it would be on the applicant's responsibility to file an extension prior to that expiration date.
To go along with, we had approved this tentative, 2 years ago? 2, 3?
2 years, but prior to that, this thing came up back in 2006. But it wasn't annexed in at the time.
Right.
And we had set some parameters on it.
We have quite a few conditions, especially along Cherry Valley Boulevard on this project. Okay, so I have, I'm going to open the public hearing at 6:21 PM.
The applicant is here if you'd like to call him up. He's happy to answer questions or make some comments.
Well, the applicant's here, the public hearing's open.
Put this right up here. Thank you. Mike White with City Ventures. I was part of the original, did the original development approval back in 2014. Prior to that, just a little bit of this historical history on the project. The original, back in the 2006, I believe that's when this specific plan was approved, which provided the base entitlement for what you built on top of. Through that process, some of the neighbors sued the project, sued the EIR primarily, and that process went to the state Supreme Court. And basically, the CEQA, the Environmental Impact Report, prevailed. And then the property owner put the property on the market after several times with various people in and out during the lawsuit. So we bought the property in 2000, probably 12. Took up a couple years to go through the process of doing the entitlement. So basically, we just did the tentative map on top of the specific plan. We actually have fewer lots than what was originally allowed on the original approval. And then we did an addendum EIR, which took into account all the additional things that had occurred during that period of time from the old EIR to the new EIR. And then they approved the project. Took a couple more years to annex to the city, so we got annexed, and all we're asking for is just a one-year extension. All the plans are basically approved. We just don't want to record the final map till we're actually ready to build. We could build the next year. We could be back in here a year asking for another extension. It's just a lot of it's market driven for us, and it's a big property. There's a lot of lots to work through, and the last thing we want to do is create a situation where we've got a project that's not performing. As the market has changed in Beaumont, some of the projects that are south of the 10 have begun to sell out. It makes our property look a little bit more attractive. So anyway, that's the background and kind of why we're here today. I'm happy to answer any other questions. Just one thing to note. The overall lot size is like 12,000 square foot average, so it varies from 8 to 19. So the minimums are just, there might be 1 or 2 lots in that plan area that meets that minimum, and the rest of the lots are big. We have slopes, we have all the conditions on Cherry Valley stay the same. We're not changing anything about the project that we approved or that the City Council approved in 2014.
No, just thank you for coming here.
No problem.
Explain that.
Thank you.
I'm good.
I have a question for you. I realize that, we're on a one-year extension, or we may be. In your process, and this, I'm jerking this to staff too, how many times can we do a one-year extension? I don't want to be coming back here 10 years from now and get another one-year extension.
They can have up to 4 one-year extensions.
And how long is the EIR good for, before it has to ever go out again?
It doesn't expire, so it runs with the land, but if the project changes at all, then they'll have to analyze those impacts in either an addendum or supplement their existing EIR.
So if they wanted to reduce the lot size or less or more homes, they would have to?
We would have to look at the environmental impact report, and they would have to analyze how those changes would impact the environment.
Maybe one thing to add, in addition to the tentative map and the specific plan, we also have a development agreement and that goes with the project too. So all the entitlements that we need have been completed. And you're right, if we came back and made significant changes that added more density or a change that had an additional impact, we would have to evaluate that and go through the addendum process, that's what we did in 2014.
I remember when we did that. Oh, you remember?
Yeah.
Remember, because that's when we added the requirements on Cherry Valley Boulevard and.
Actually, the Cherry Valley comments came for the specific plan. We just implemented that with our map.
Okay.
And so, and then, we had issues with water, but that's all been resolved through the courts, and the project provides water, has water. We're an underlier water rights for the basin, so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other speakers to talk on the open hearing for this?
No requests.
Okay, at this point, I'm going to close the public hearing at 6:26 p.m. And if there's any other comments from the commissioners to staff?
None.
Okay, then I'm going to I'm looking for a motion. The staff recommends that the planning commission forward a recommendation to approve the city council to approve a one-year extension of time for tentative track map 36583.
Move to approve 1-year extension to the tentative track map 36583.
Okay, I have a motion.
Second?
I have a motion and a second to approve tentative map 36583 and the reference to the one-year extension.
Commissioner St. Martin?
Yes.
Commissioner Calindres?
Yes.
Vice Chair Stevens?
Yes.
Chair Tinker?
Yes. Do we let Nathan back in now?
We want.
Hey, you can come home now. You know, we try to have a little levity here, but again, like I explained to you, is the reason that he excused himself is because there was a potential conflict. And we want to do away with it, make sure that we're as above board as you can get. Okay, next item, number 5, variance 2020-0071 and 07 PP-12. Consideration of a request for a variance from the light standard height limit of 20 feet, city section 8.50.070.3, to a maximum 25 feet, and modifications of the condition of approval for plot plan 07-PP-12 for 13.6 acres located within the Sundance specific plan at the southwest corner of 8th Street and Highland Springs Avenue. And I'm going to turn it to staff.
Thank you, Chairman Tinker. Good evening, Commissioners. Before you tonight is actually 2 requests. We have a request for a modification of conditions, and then we have a request for a variance. So I'll go through the staff report in each section. The Sundance Corporate Center is located at Highland Springs and 8th Street. You may have noticed the 3 buildings out there currently under construction. They stand about 50 feet high. The site is surrounded by single-family residential to the north. We have an elementary school and some residential to the west, a vacant lot to the south of the site, and then a proposed residential and commercial development, much like the Sundance development, to the east of the property in the city of Banning. At build-out, the site will be accessible via 2 driveways on East 8th Street and a signalized driveway at Highland Springs Avenue. A traffic analysis was prepared for this project with recommendations on how to mitigate any adverse impacts that might be created by these uses. Based on the analysis, a traffic signal was recommended to be installed at the Highland Springs Avenue entrance. This recommendation was included in the conditions of approval for the combined plot plan and parcel map. The recommended signal at the entrance to the development at Highland Springs was required with the intent to facilitate safer, full movement access to the site and to maintain the desired level of service on Highland Springs Avenue. The condition was developed as a result of a 2008 traffic impact analysis that was performed specifically for the proposed center. The condition reads as follows. A traffic signal shall be installed at the intersection of Highland Springs Avenue and Driveway 1 to the satisfaction of the Director of Public Works prior to building occupancy at the site. So it was determined through that TIA that there would only be a deficiency in level of service on Highland Springs during peak evening travel times. The proposed remediation for the deficiency was either providing a transition lane in the median on Highland Springs to allow left turn movement or signalizing the entrance. The city did determine that signalizing the entrance was the preferred remediation. The signal is part of an overall traffic signal plan, which includes several signals north of this location along Highland Springs, as well as directly across Highland Springs and the city of Banning. The applicant is requesting the traffic signal at Highland Springs entrance be deferred so a proper coordination effort with Pardee Homes in the city of Banning can be carried out. Staff has discussed the proposed request with Public Works Department as well as Public Safety and resulted in the following points. The Highland Springs access point could be closed utilizing concrete K-rail or some sort of permanent barrier until the signal is installed. And that would prohibit anybody from accessing the development from that location and really eliminate anybody making dangerous, movements out of the driveway until the signal is installed. Construction traffic and customer traffic will be separated. Construction is still going on at that location. So construction traffic will be directed to use the westernmost driveway on 8th Street. This access point will be marked and will be closed when not in use. Customer traffic will utilize the eastern driveway on 8th Street. This access point will be fully improved at the time the first occupants open for business, and it'll be marked for customer access. Since there are 2 other points of access serving the site, public safety can adequately access the site in an emergency situation. The fire department has determined they only need access through the primary public entrance, but would be able to utilize the construction entrance if necessary. Staff has determined that the signal needs to be installed before additional permits on pad sites are issued. The site can be adequately served right now by the two 8th Street entrances. Moving on to the variance for the light standard heights. As I stated, the corporate center has 3 medical office buildings under construction and preparing for occupancy. The buildings will host a variety of uses, including medical, dental, urgent care, and some outpatient surgery. The site has a significant amount of parking, ADA paths of travel, pedestrian walkways. Due to the nature of services provided on the site, there can be employees and customers at the location well into the nighttime hours. For the safety of the employees and the patients, light standards were installed throughout the site, providing adequate lighting of the parking areas and the paths of travel, while still meeting the outdoor lighting standards in the Beaumont Municipal Code, with the exception of light standard height. The municipal code establishes a 20-foot height limit for light poles in the commercial zone. The light poles at the Sundance Corporate Center are 20 feet tall, but they were installed on a concrete base for an overall height of approximately 25 feet. Due to previous interpretation of the code, plan check and inspection approved the light standards at this height. Current staff's interpretation of the code would consider this height non-conforming, which is why we're before you today. The code does provide an opportunity for a variance for non-conforming lighting, subject to the conditions or subject to the findings stated in the code. There are special circumstances, is the first one, and then granting of the variance would be in harmony with the intent of the chapter. As you can see, both findings were able to be positively made in staff's opinion. They are included in your staff report. At this time, staff recommends the Planning Commission conduct a public hearing and forward a recommendation to City Council for approval of the modification of the condition of approval, and also approve variance VAR 2020-0071. Staff is available to answer any questions, and the applicants are also present in the audience, as well as our Public Works Director and Assistant City Manager, to address all the concerns.
Not at this time.
Our resident engineer.
So the dark skies ordinance would still continue to be met, it's just the height.
So the height is the issue. Now, I will say we have had pretty significant communication with some residents that are adjacent to the property, and we're currently working with the property owner to address some of the light shed that's going over into the residences that are immediately adjacent to the wall on the north. The code doesn't require a variance for that, but because the lights are at 25 feet instead of 20 feet, I think that the light shed is somewhat linked to that. So what we're working with the applicant on is shielding and or turning off a certain number of those lights at a point, which I believe is 10 p.m. in the code, to go ahead and continue meet what the dark sky ordinance says. So by adding some shields, that will make sure the light, I'm gonna keep doing that, talk with my hands, make sure the light is focused downward and eliminate some of the horizontal bleed.
Okay.
And then the timing of the lights, as far as turning some of the other ones off at 10 p.m. like the code requires, we're still working on probably a light timing situation and some things like that with the applicant.
Okay.
I don't see more.
There any issue with traffic on Highland Springs Avenue? The lighting.
Issues,
Well, will that lighting affect drivers on Highland Springs?
no, we're talking about the lights here that are interior, closer to the building, so pulled in from Highland Springs Avenue quite a bit.
Okay.
Yeah, I had the question, well, I think that's, not a question, but I guess a suggestion, because there is residential homes in part of the, because I spoke with a resident today, and they told me the exact same thing about the lighting, that they had to put darker shades in their home because it was too bright. So I'm not sure which, I didn't have a chance to go today to take a walk through, but I wanted to see if they could, I guess, possibly, like you said, I guess, turn those closer to the residential homes off, or maybe make dimmer lighting there. Because I guess that they're already constructed, correct?
They are. They're up. So the light shields are intended to address that concern, in particular, the lights along the north side. So you have light standards, and then you have dual mounted heads. So you have a head that faces north and a head that faces south on the light poles. And so we would be looking at shielding the ones that face north, because those are the ones that are bleeding onto the residential properties. The south light heads, for public safety purposes and for customers and whatnot, are being requested to be left on, because we have ambulances that are going to be going in there, and possibly other types of emergency vehicles, as well as customers or, individuals that would be utilizing the after-hour services.
How many lights are we talking about?
How many lights are we talking about on the north side?
If they had to replace them and shorten them,
Let's see here.
how many fixtures are we talking about?
Jan, do you have that number offhand? Why don't you come up I'm sorry. This is the representative for the project, Jan Harriman. If you want to open the public hearing.
I guess I'm going to now.
Tinker. Please.
Okay.
I
I'm
can go
gonna-
sit down again and then come back up.
Oh, no. You've already made that effort, so I'm gonna open the public hearing at 6:39 PM.
Okay, my name's Jan Harriman, I'm one of the owners. And along the back north wall where the homes the party has, there's 6 lights at the back. And then there's 3 lights where the homes, that they go along here and then they stop. And then it's the school and the police department on the
The west side.
west side. And there's 2 rows of lights, the 6 lights that are along the back of the houses, and then next to the buildings, the lights are, as Christina said, they're 2 ways. What we've suggested, and we said we would do, is we would take the ones facing north, and they have this, whatever it is, that goes under the light, and it shoots all the light down. Our concern is not that we want to have problems with the neighbors. Our concern is that people coming onto the project, and after closing time, people that are going to be in the buildings and that are going to be walking to their cars, that if it's dark in that back corner, we've got to have lights so that for safety features. So we're willing to shield some of the lights, but we can't shield all of them. And that's the only thing we can do. We can put them on as they suggested, perhaps we put them on timers to where they go off at a certain time. But we have an urgent care that'll be open 24 hours. We have a surgery center that the people will be coming to work like at 4 in the morning and going late at night. We have an imaging center and a physical therapy, and people will be in wheelchairs. So we can't control everything, but we're willing to do what we can to mitigate the problems with homes next door to us. Thank you.
So if I understand this correctly, there's the signal recommendation, which is recommended to put on hold.
Yeah, so the signal recommendation, two separate things we're dealing with. So the signal recommendation is just to defer that until the issuance of additional permits on the pad sites. So we believe that with the 3 medical centers opening up, and they're not all opening up in full at once, that the site can be served by the two driveways that are there. But before they can pull any additional permits for any additional buildings, we're going to require that signal be in. And that seems to work with the timing on some of the other signals that will be going up Highland Springs, because we would like to have a coordinated timed signal movement down Highland Springs Avenue.
And especially given that they're about to start doing a major widening on Highland Springs probably for the next 3 to 4 months.
Right, yeah, there's a lot of as you're well aware, there's a lot of activity over there.
Yeah, I mean, I drive that every day, and sometimes multiple times a day on the weekend, and the alignment of Palmer, Joshua Palmer, the realignment
Oh,
by the freeway, and the signal issues, you know, with the timing, it's a mess. And it seems like, you know, we're adding another signal in there that could potentially disrupt that traffic even further with the new developments going on in Second Street. So my question to staff is, all this going to be, is the timing of those signals and then the new signal, is this all going to be happening, or are we just adding a signal and hoping for the best?
So our request is to not add the signal at this time, and that's
Right.
part of the reason why we want to make sure that it is a coordinated effort. If you need more information on signal timing, I'll defer to Jeff Hart, our Public Works Director, as I'm not a signal timing expert, but that is the request at this time, because we understand the need for it to be coordinated, because there already is the issue at Highland Springs and the 10, which I know staff at both Banning and our city have been working with Caltrans to try and get that addressed, because there is a Caltrans component with that.
Caltrans owns and operates those signals, not the
Exactly.
cities, so.
Yep.
Any other comment from Nathan?
Do we have any idea on when the next pad might be looking to come in? Because I'm not crazy about having K-rails up there for 2, 3, 4 years.
Sure.
Is there any indication on when we might expect the next development?
I'll defer that to Jan on, the applicant, on what she can tell
Come
you.
on, Jan, nobody said go sit down.
I know, I should have just stayed up here. Actually, as soon as the first building, they're going to start occupying it, but as soon as SCE gives us the okay with the electricity in there, we're ready to go with the traffic signal. It is on a 20-week back order to get the poles, but the moment we could put that light in, we're going to put it in.
Okay.
We would have put it in already if we could have.
Okay.
Don't go away.
I'm not, no, I'm waiting for the next question, I'm ready.
There is no signals going in on 8th Street?
No, there were no signals required by this project for 8th Street. So there's currently the signal at Highland Springs and 8th.
Not for the other
It would be
entrances.
too close to have put signals at the other driveways.
Mr. Seymour?
The only comment, going back to the lights, I don't see where, based on these pictures, where if you lowered it 5 feet, it was going to make that much of a difference.
Right, and I'm not sure that it would. We went out and looked at the site a couple different times at a couple different daytime hours and evening hours to see if we could get some gauge. The lights are pretty bright LEDs, and so I think you're right. I'm not sure that the reducing the height by the 5 feet would make a difference, but I think the shielding will make a significant difference.
I think the shield, because you can look at the streetlights that are out on Oak Valley Parkway heading down the canyon, and they direct fairly well down.
Right.
So there's not a lot of horizontal bleeding that comes out of that. So I think that the shielding is pretty effective.
Okay, well, I just have a couple comments. First of all, we're dealing with two different items here.
We are.
As far as the, no. Where are you going?
I didn't want to, so that's good.
Where are you going?
I'm standing right here waiting to answer.
We do have public comment on this as well. so.
Okay, my thought is on the signal light, now that I've heard you're gonna get it done, I'm not in favor of doing anything. I'm in favor of no more pad issuance till the signal light's in. My second comment on the lights is I understood that all our lights are supposed to be shielded so none of it goes north anyway. So those lights should have been shielded when they were installed.
So our building official actually reviewed the specs for these lights, and they do meet what the dark sky ordinance requires by code. It just appears that they're not functioning as they should. So the applicant has said that they'll provide the extra shielding because we want to address the issue.
Okay. All right, well then, okay, you're good.
I'm out of here.
Okay, do I have any other comments?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Marcia Mason?
Hello. I'm one of those residents that are on the west side.
May I have your name and address? please?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's Marcia Mason, 1639 Hadar Way.
Thank you.
I actually have a picture of, that I took before I left the house, of the light and the building that you can see from my backyard. So, one of the questions that I didn't know about was the signal lights, so let me address that first. where is the signal light going to go in at? Is it going to be 100 feet from the Highland Springs and 8th Street light already? How far away? Because there's Starlight where my street comes out of, and then we're going to go right, hit a light, and then go down 100 feet and hit another light. That's how I'm perceiving it.
It's about 550 feet.
Okay, because there's not that much room from the entrance, because I drive that way every day too, to go to work and come home. And when I pull out of Starlight, a few feet, I don't know how many feet, but then there's the entrance that they built, and then you're saying 500 feet to the next light on 8th and Highland Springs? Is that how I'm understanding it?
It'll be about 550 feet from the proposed signalized entrance down to the corner at Highland Springs and 8th Street.
So that doesn't seem like there's a lot of driving space before you get to the next light. So I don't know, I mean, some of you probably drive that, you drive that, so what, it's not that far, right, from the entrance to the corner? So that would be a concern, having to hit 2 lights already. And then the problem we have is when we come out of Starlight, we have traffic coming. I don't know if they plan on putting a light there, because there's the driveway to go into the new buildings that are coming up across the street. So I don't know if they had wanted to put a light in there. I mean, it looked like that they may lean towards that way, so then there'll be a light there, and a light at the corner of 8th and Highland. That's a lot of lights, just to get down Highland Springs. So.
Do we have an answer for that?
So on the Banning side, there is a mirror signal proposed across. The development they're proposing over there fairly well mirrors the Sundance project that we have with both the commercial at the corner and then the residential. And she is correct, there are some signals. But again, the idea with deferring this signal is to make sure that as these signals go in, they're timed so it's not stop, go, stop, go, stop, go, that everything moves smoothly as it should.
Yes, as part of the.
Excuse me, and who are you?
Christine Day, Assistant City Manager.
Okay.
Yes, as part of the development that Party is doing on Highland Springs, Starlight does get signaled. So it's one of the additional that's coming in.
Thank you.
Okay, the other issue was the lights that are shining into our backyard. Used to love the night sky when I first moved there. Okay, can't enjoy that anymore with the lights that are up there right now. Now, nobody lives there but us and the other residents that I've been in touch with in the community neighborhood watch zone 12, I believe. We all have concerns with the lights shining. And it's not just on the north side, it's all along that wall that they're shining into our yards, our backyards. And then for us too, we also have the privacy issue. If you'd like to see the picture, I can definitely show you the one that I took in my backyard where the light pole is there and the building that they can actually see into my backyard from the 3rd story. Now, we were told there were trees going to be put there, but they're not tall enough yet, and it's probably going to take years before they are tall enough to provide any privacy. So our concern is not just the brightness of that, but also the privacy of the building. So does anybody want to see the picture?
No, I'll take your word for it.
Okay.
I would like to see, just see it, because I live in Sundance as well, and
This is the corner of my backyard, and that's the building. And it's closer than it looks in the picture.
Okay, so let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
And I'm not trying to, by any way, shape, or form, to put you on the spot. But if the staff is working with a developer to get the lights shielded, what would be your recommendation to resolve the privacy issue?
Well, they would need to install some kind of barrier, and the trees that they installed is not sufficient enough for that privacy. So I'm not a, landscaping engineer or anything, so I don't know what's available out there to be installed for that. I mean, they actually put in their own trees at their own cost, which was several $1,000s to put trees in for privacy. But it's not, the trees that the construction site, where the construction site is, it's not tall enough.
So I would like to just comment momentarily on this to give the commission a little perspective. The uses and the buildings and all the things that are existing right now, Highland and 8th, are allowed permitted uses. The typical setback in the specific plan as required would be about 20 feet on the side and rear. And that's even adjacent residential, and that's pretty typical with what we require in the city. So due to the height and scale of the buildings and what the applicant knew was adjacent, the setbacks on the side are about 101 feet from the building to the property line, and then on the rear is about 243 feet. So I understand the buildings are large, and it is probably some concern for the residents, but the applicant and staff at the time, did try and take that into consideration in providing additional distance from the commercial use to the residential use. They also did put in landscaping above what was required or what we would typically require as far as size of tree and things like that along the slope areas. But the applicant is correct that they are still, new in the scheme of things, and it will be several years, I'm sure, before they're big enough to really provide a barrier.
The other, I'm
Can
sorry.
I just make a quick, need to remind the commission, this is not an item on your agenda, so talking about the privacy is not something that you're agendized for. So if it's something that you'd like to bring back, it's something that maybe we could talk about in the future, but it's not an item that's listed specifically. So engaging in discussion would be a violation of your Open Meetings Act.
Thank you for your comment, but we're quite aware of what we're doing here. And we're going to allow our members of our public, even though we won't take action on it, but we will allow them, since it's an open session, to allow them to make their comments. Thank you.
Making comment is one thing, but having a discussion is a completely separate.
Thank you very much for your input.
The other thing that the staff mentioned was the usage of the building, which, or maybe it was the applicant had mentioned that urgent care and the ambulance in 24 hours. My daughter goes to Beaver, and as far as I know, their urgent care is not 24 hours, nor have I been notified that urgent care that's going to be open is 24 hours. There will be extended hours, because the one down on Highland Springs, I think, is open till 10 or 9. So I was told that it was going to be open till 11, but nothing 24 hours, because they were mentioning the light issue about the safety of the staff and stuff.
Okay, but I want to move this back to where we were initially talking about the lights and the traffic signal. As far as the occupancy of the buildings, that's something that's already been approved. So if you have any other further comment, please, and then other than that, I'm going to close the public hearing.
We have one more speaker.
Okay, we have the other speaker. Thank you.
Next speaker is Jennifer Andres.
Hi, Jennifer Andres. I live next door to her on 904 Anser Lane. And I, too, want to reiterate the problem with the lighting. I've had to add blackout curtains to my window, and the light still comes in through the curtains. It's waking my husband up in the middle of the night, and he works different hours than most people. He has to go to bed at 7, which is when these lights turn on, and then he wakes up at 2 in the morning, and so it looks like it's already sunrise when he's getting up, and it's not. Addressing, I think the developer mentioned on the north side of the wall that there's 6 lights and there's going to be covers placed on those. Well, we are on the west side, where I believe she mentioned there are 3 of those lights that are closest to the outer perimeter of the Sundance Corporate Center, which are close to our properties they're close to our properties. And so I would like to request that shields also be placed on our lights as well as the ones that are on the north side. And I have pictures as well if you want to see them. But it's not only those lights, but it's the interior lights where the cars are going to be parking that are further away from our property. Those lights are currently on right now, and I have pictures of that. They're super bright.
Yeah, those were the lights that I was referring to. So we would be talking about both the perimeter and then the interior ones are actually the ones I think that are flowing. So we have received your concerns.
Yeah, the ones that are the square ones, not the ones that are double, but are single and square. Those shine directly into my bedroom window. But it's not only those, it's the interior ones. And then, so you talked about horizontal bleed, so I think that's, if there were covers on all the lights shielding for all the homes, so on the west side, there'd be covers on the west side, and then on the north side, they'd be covered this way?
Yes, that's what we're working with the applicant on. So basically shielding the lights that are on the residential side. So on the double-headed lights, it would be the ones on the north side, and on your side, if it's just the singles, it would be the ones that are adjacent to, or the ones that are close to your west property line there.
Okay, I understand. It's not just the singles, though. It's the
parking lot lighting as well?
It's the internal parking lot
Okay.
ones, because
That's the same issue on the north side.
they just happen to kind of line up right with my bedroom. And the way the houses are designed, our bedrooms face the back, and which is the Sundance corporate building.
Yes.
And then, I don't know what Jan,
Our applicant?
the applicant,
Yes, uh-huh.
was talking about the corner being dark. The corner is not dark. The whole backyard is lit up. The whole parking lot is lit up. There's no concern at this point with the way the lights are right now that corner is going to be dark. It's super bright.
Okay, I appreciate your comments. I think staff has a pretty good feel now for the issues as far as what lights need to be shielded. Obviously, there's some additional lights that need to be looked at. So I'm sure that staff's going to work with that and with the developer to see if we can't get some compliance in there for you.
Okay, and then I have one question.
Sure.
About, it goes back to privacy and what Marsha Mason brought up. I know it's not part of the agenda this evening, but the Sundance community, the Sundance corporate building, they can look straight into my backyard, which is very concerning for my privacy. And I would like to know how I can get action on bringing that up as an agenda.
Okay, what you need to do is, because it's not on the agenda, we can't make a comment either way on it. We can let you voice your opinion, but you need to meet with city planning staff, and they will work with you to put it on the agenda.
You can email myself or Miss Day. I think you've been in contact with her. If not, we'll get with you after the meeting and give you our information.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any further comments? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing at 7:01 PM. So I'm looking now for a recommendation, a motion, or a second.
So I have a quick question. So the signal timing thing, by staging everything together, we're going to be able to kind of institute a more regular traffic pattern where it's not going to be stop and go. That's what the intent of this delay is. While they are close in distance, that they can be timed and sequenced in such a manner that it's not going to be overly disruptive to traffic on the road.
Right. Good evening, Chairman, Planning Commissioners, Jeff Hart, Public Works Director.
Thank you.
Right, so the intent of this signalization obviously is to minimize the delays and improve level of service. So the signal that will be at the location for driveway number 1 and 8th Street, that's about an 1/8 mile away, which is within city criteria, and then there will be a coordinated effort between the signals that are being constructed, that Pardee is constructing. So there will be improvements to 8th Street, Highland Springs, Wilson intersection. There'll be a new construction at driveway 1 to align with the new residential development on the other side for Banning, which is the Atwell subdivision. There'll be a new signal at Starlight, modification of the signal at Sundance, and then Oak Valley as well. So, yeah, as these go through, we will work with the traffic engineer to ensure that these signals are synchronized to the best extent possible to, improve flow on Highland Springs, and at the same time, not be too big of a deterrent or delay for any of the cross streets that we're signalizing as well. To speak to Vice Chairman Stevens' concerns, we're aware that there's heavy congestion on Highland Springs. There are several things in the works that are a slow, arduous process. We have just recently engaged in a cooperative agreement with RCTC and the City of Banning for a PSR, Project Study Report, for a Highland Springs interchange. That is several years out. In the meantime, we're looking at doing some other modifications to Highland Springs to improve flow the best we can. We have a pending signalization timing agreement with the City of Banning and Caltrans that we are trying to get executed, which will hopefully improve efficiency of the signals that are south of 8th Street. So as we get further to I-10 and south of I-10, there's some minor ramp improvements we're looking at. So we are aware there's limited things we can do within the existing footprint that we have. We want to maximize those efficiencies, and then long term we are looking at an overall interchange improvement at Highland Springs.
Thank you. Yeah, when I'm driving my turbo diesel, I can make the lights. Getting off the freeway, anything lower than that, I can't. I'm stopped at every light. Knowing that there's one going in at Starlight, there has been some major collisions there at that 8th and Highland Springs, and with proper timing, that might even slow traffic down a little bit because people do tend to speed up and down Highland Springs.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
I had a quick comment. So we are looking into maybe putting those lights into a timer and shielding them as well, right?
Yes, so staff has actually been working with the applicant on this for several weeks now. We've got email conversations about it. We've met in person several times. We have some of the lights already identified. Recently, we just figured out that the shields are going to be the best way to go, and that is what's going to address that. That is within the purview of staff to deal with, so you guys don't necessarily have to act on that, but it is pertinent to the conversation about the request for variance in the light standard height, which is why we have it before you this evening. But yes, we will continue to work with the applicant and make sure that that's getting addressed.
Any other questions from staff?
No, as long as they address the issues.
Not sure. Okay, then at this point, the public hearing is closed.
I have one more, actually, on the interior lights. It's kind of a separate, this was interior inside the Amazon building. It's all motion sensors. So one day when I was walking through that building, noticed the lights were turning on and then, turning off behind me. Is that something that can be implemented in the parking lot lights? Is that something that has been considered or done in the past?
So I think that the lights are already installed, and I don't believe that technology was installed with the lights. It's something I can bring up with the applicant to determine if that's something that's viable or not, as opposed to just installing the shields and maybe putting the timers on so that certain lights do go off at 10 like the ordinance requires.
Right. Well, yeah, we know there's going to be traffic at 4 a.m. and late nights and that sort of thing, and with those lights shining bright all the time.
Right. I know they have the ability to timer different lights, so they won't all have to go off. We will be able to have the lights on for safety purposes, so your ADA pathways and your driveway parking areas closest to the building there for the urgent care will be able to still be lit, but we can address the residents' concerns through a variety of shielding and timing on having certain lights off and on.
I imagine having lights flashing on and off throughout the night might even be more distracting than just lights on all the time too, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Your staff, other comments?
The only other thing I would say is this was disclosed when these people bought into that development. Is that correct?
So this was approved as part of the Sundance specific plan. The types of uses, the commercial designation of the property, all of that has been in place. Nothing has changed since at least probably 10 or 12 years, if not more. So I cannot speak to how homes were purchased and how homes were purchased and what was disclosed by the builders or the sellers. But as far as entitlements go, yes, this has been entitled for a number of years.
Well, I can remember when we discussed this a long time ago, they talked about the building height and the setbacks. They were moving it further back to help eliminate some of the issues. So, you know. Okay,
I'm sorry, can I say something real quick?
make it real quick.
The house that we're in was built in 2006. I didn't buy the house until 2012, and I did ask the realtor about that plot of land. She told me nothing higher than 2-story, which is what all of my neighbors were told. So we were all lied to about what was going on.
Okay, I understand your concern,
Purview.
but that's out of our purview.
I
and
understand
this-
that, but I wanted to give you a history because he mentioned that we all knew, but we
Okay.
didn't.
But we can't address that issue. That's
I
it.
understand
That's
that.
a height issue and it's a building department issue. Okay, I think we've chased this rabbit till he's died.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for a
We have-
motion.
We'll have two recommendations. We'll have one to deal with the modification of the condition and then a separate recommendation for the variance.
Okay. So I'm looking for a motion on variance 2020-0071.
I motion for variance 20200071.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to approve to forward to the city council approval of modification of conditions for variance 2020-0071.
We need to do a vote on the variance motion first, and then we'll take a separate action on the forwarding the condition.
Okay. So we're voting on the variance.
So we have a recommendation of approval by Commissioner Colindres and a second by Commissioner Smith for approval of variance 2020-0071. So
Yes.
we'll take a roll call on that.
Commissioner St. Martin?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Colindres?
Yes.
Vice Chair Stevens?
Yes.
Chairman Tinker?
Yes.
Okay. Now,
Now, 07 PP-12?
yes.
Okay, I need a motion to approve 07-PP-12, which is be another recommendation to forward to council.
I will move to forward to council the recommendation.
I have a motion to forward to council.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to forward to council.
Commissioner St. Martin?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Colindres?
Yes.
Vice Chair Stevens?
Yes.
Chairman Tinker?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, now, we get to the bosses here with the Community Development Director's comments.
No comments for you this evening.
Okay, if we have no comments, does any commissioner have any comments they want to make before I close this meeting?
No.
Okay, at this point, at 7:10 PM, I will close the Planning Commission meeting.